A lot of African Americans are starting to call for reparations for the many years of stolen labor through slavery. Is that something that you would support as president?
No, I don't think so. I think it would be, first of all, its likelihood of getting through a Congress is nil. Second of all, I think it would be, very divisive. I think the real issue is when we look at the poverty rate among the African American community, when we look at the high unemployment rate within the African American community, the incarceration rate within the African American community, we have a lot of work to do. So I think what we should be talking about is making massive investments in rebuilding our cities, in creating millions of decent paying jobs, in making public colleges and universities tuition free, and working on childcare. Basically, targeting our federal resources to the areas that it is needed the most, and where it is needed the most are in impoverished communities, often African American and Latino.
I spoke with Ta-Nehisi, national correspondent of The Atlantic and author of the award-winning book Between the World and Me, and I asked him why he felt moved to write the Sanders piece.
Well, I simply didn't understand his answer. I mean, to be blunt, the senator, whose campaign I respect, who I've considered very, very courageous, who some people in my household that are a lot younger than me actually support and have been very vocal about supporting. I think has inspired quite a number of people with his willingness to put solutions on the table that a lot of folks consider outside of the politically doable. And so then to see him dismiss reparations simply because it is not politically doable in his opinion, it just felt completely off. It felt out of tune with the entire spirit of his campaign. He mentioned that the chances for getting reparations through Congress are nil. In fact, the senator advocates several things whose chances in Congress are also nil. I'm not saying he shouldn't be advocating those things, by the way. My point is that he should. You need those ideas out into the world. That should be part of the political debate. I'm a fan of that, but I'm a fan of doing it across the board and not being selective about it.
But and I'm going to just basically adopt a pose of devil's advocate for the moment, since we don't have the Sanders people here and they never responded, right? So, I mean, one thing I would say is the elephant in the room here, obviously, is that the Democratic Party right now is a multiracial coalition, but it's a multiracial coalition that is capable of snapping in the sense that a calculation is made that reparations would essentially be so anathema to a considerable number of Democratic white voters, particularly Democratic white and Latino voters, I think non-black voters, that it would just blow up even what might ultimately end up as a protest candidacy. Okay,
so then why not respond and say that? Why not say that? Why not just say, listen, I have to represent what, my coalition says, and right now, I don't think, I think reparations is actually a very justified, idea, but I don't think we have the support within our coalition to say that. If that's the argument, then make the argument. That seems like a pretty good one. Go ahead and make it then.
I guess my question is, when you've got someone who is who is pushing for things that we all, I think, agree are going to be very hard to bring about, does that leave him any room to essentially say some things aren't possible, these things aren't possible, but they're closer to being possible than those other things?
Yeah, surely. But I think when I see somebody just wave away reparations on pragmatic concerns, when your campaign itself is not based on pragmatism, when your campaign is based on, as I said before, what is politically imaginable. And that's a really, really good thing, by the way. I'm defending that. I'm not against that. I'm for candidacies based on that. That's the tonal difference. It's not that, hey, we have a bunch of great ideas here, but only some of them look like they can actually happen, or some look more likely to happen than others. So these are the ones that we're going to advocate on. First of all, they didn't even return, my numerous calls or my email. So let's just start there. There was no even, back channel conversation about that at all. They just, left it be and felt that, it shouldn't be responded to. That's fine, but then I have to go and write what I think about that, and forget even a back channel conversation. There's just nothing, on the record speaking as you're speaking. It was dismissed on pragmatic terms, but those are not the terms of the rest of Bernie Sanders' platform, and they shouldn't be, by the way.